Yesterday's watch review today. I haven't done a yesterday's watch review today in quite some time. I've been distracted with other stuff, but I don't know. I'm feeling a little bit more plugged in today than I was during the 6309 introduction video because that had been, I don't know, I was just all frazzled. I'm still kind of frazzled, but I'm doing okay. Anyway, yesterday's watch review today. Talking about the 6138 004X Bullhead. These are cool. People love them. Very unusual, even for Seiko at the time, and they did some crazy stuff. I don't know, honestly, I don't know a lot about the history of these. In the 70s, Seiko was doing a lot of really nutty, out there designs, really kind of out stuff, especially with the 6138 movements. They are the most unusual of the different models that they put out. I mean, they did some funky stuff with the 6139s, but with these double register 6138s, they did some truly wacky stuff. How they decided to come up with this asymmetric profile bullhead automatic hand winding chronograph, I'm not exactly sure. There were really only two main variants. There was the brown and there was the black. The browns are easier to find. They also had more variants. There were a couple speed timer variants that were from Japan. One just said speed timer, another one said Seiko 5 speed timer, and those were you can still find those. A standard issue basic speed timer like this is the one most commonly seen. The JDM speed timers also were not loomed for some reason. They were not loomed on the dial, and the hands weren't loomed either. Now, compare that. So you have multiple versions of the brown. I guess it was their popular seller. Compare that to the black. That's it. This is the only model of black that they ever made. There was no speed timer version. There was no JDM version. This one is it's pretty neat. It's amazing. I mean, like I said, there's only this one version, and these blacks, they're pretty rare. In all my time doing this, I've never owned one before. This is the first one. You know how rare it is for me to say, gosh, I've never owned this particular watch model before? I've never owned this particular watch model before. And it took a pretty special watch for me to decide that it was time. It was time to pick up one, because they're getting harder to find, but this one has everything you want to look for in a bullhead. And we're going to talk about both. We're going to talk about the brown and the black, and we'll see how that goes and tell you what to think, and we'll go over it all. They're wacky. Okay, let's break and talk. So here we are. They're unusual watches. They were special for their time. Like their time, their styling is very much of the period in which they were created. Especially like the brown bullhead is just, it's a crazy artifact of the 1970s, and the mixture of brown and gold. I mean, I was a kid in the 1970s, all through them. And boy, I remember brown and gold. But typical for Seiko, these have, they're highly usable, they're highly legible, nice and clean. Since these are both the same model, they both have loomed dials and hands. They have a non-moving tacky bezel that goes on. They're big. They're heavy watches. I mean, I think it's not so much that they're super wide. 43 over 43 and a half wide. I mean, it's pretty big. 43, really? That large? Yeah, look at that, 43.63. But the big thing is how tall they are. Almost 16 millimeters tall, really big. They're cool though. They also have, not only that, they emphasize the sort of asymmetry of the case, both in height and profile, by having an asymmetric bracelet. You can see it here. It's wider on the top than it is on the bottom. It's something peculiar to these watches. The biggest thing, I don't know, another thing that's nice about both of these watches is it gets to show, what good looks like. I go on and on and on about what good looks like. For some reason, the Bullheads, all these 6138s, they tend to be, all the different models, they tend to be beaten. I don't know why. It's unusual to get them in the condition where they're unpolished with clean, crisp cases. I mean, these are both good, but I mean, Seiko and their mania for case finishes. You can see this is horizontally brushed. This is a high polish bevel here. The brushing continues on this sort of shelf around the buttons. Then it has back to front brushing here, and these really sharp case lines where everything meets. Extremely hard to replicate. There's a lot that went into these. And so when they get scratched up though, what guys would do, watchsmiths would do, is they just put them on a buffing wheel and polish the bejesus out of them. This is a bad case. It's an old case that somebody tried to make pretty again. You can tell, it's a little hard to tell, but I can see it. This brushing on the side is kind of bad, and you can see that this line here, this transition is kind of wavery, and it's also rounded over because it's just blobby. What they did is they polished the ever-loving heck out of the case, and then they re-ground this side, but they did it really poorly. You can see too that just see how the side, this bevel, isn't really flat, it's kind of warpy, and I mean in the front to back, this brushing's gone. You can see that this case transition here is all blurred, and this is often what they look like. I don't know why. Almost more than any other watch model, these Bullheads are almost always worked over like this. I don't know why. Perhaps because there's something about the case design that lends itself to extra wear. I don't know. Anyway, as I was saying in the video, the browns are far easier to find. They're much easier to come across in all the different varieties. Some are harder to find than others, but these are pretty simple. The black Bullheads, they're just very difficult to come across. This one is completely original. This is, as far as I know, it's never been opened. I've never opened it. I haven't cracked the back at all. It's got all of the features that we look for. Completely original dial. Perfect dial surface. The lume is an unusual patina tan. They don't normally do this. Seiko lume doesn't like to do this. It'll normally only do this in the presence of like heat. I don't know why this one came out like this. This is also completely original lume. That's all original. And this is the standard color. See how it's sort of this nice chalk white? Well, this is also original, and it's got this patina. Normally Seiko lume will go gray, but this is this beautiful, like lightly butter colored tan. It's amazing, actually. The insert is very good, and it still has these little square markers are still the yellow. Normally these will fade down to just the silver underneath, but that's still yellow. The watch is completely unrestored. As far as I know, it's never been opened, as I said, and it has, I mean, it's got some gruck inside the case. Let's see if you look in there, see the dirt in here. Nobody's cleaned this off. Nobody's opened this up. It's been this way for a long time. I think this sat in someone's drawer for a long time. Oh yeah, I was gonna measure. I was gonna actually weigh this. Let's weigh this, shall we? Turn on. Gosh, did the batteries run out of this thing? Uh-oh. Darn it, I can't weigh it. I have to put new batteries in my digital scale. I just put new batteries in this darn thing. Here. Oh well. Some background on the movement inside of these. Seiko in 1969 released two different new chronograph movements. The first one was the 6139, which is like the Pogue and stuff like that, which is only has a single register. And then shortly afterwards, they released the 6138. The 6138 and the 6139 are, for the most part, they're basically the same movement. The difference for the 6138 is they added this 12-hour register up here. Now, in order to do this, they had to basically add an extra plate on the top of the movement to make way for the levers to reset this and all of the spring tensions and everything that govern just this. It was actually a pretty significant extra investment in time. Now, don't worry about this movement. It's unrestored, so don't freak out. Everything's going to be fine. I pulled this out specifically because it shows the extra plate that Seiko added. It's this top plate right here. Now, normally when you would look at this, this is where the date wheel would sit right here. There would be plates over the top of this right here. You can see one of the plates right there, and then the day wheel would go on top of that, and then you'd assemble it. But this is what that top plate looks like. You can see the jewel here for the mainspring arbor port. This is one of the only 6000 series watches, aside from like the high beats, where Seiko jeweled this. And the reason they did that is because the 12-hour wheel, which is right here, there's the pinion for the 12-hour wheel, is driven off of a gear that sits on top of the mainspring barrel, which is underneath here. And if this wears at all, as mainspring arbors tend to, then that would come out of connection, and this register would stop working. So that is the reason they jeweled this particular piece. I really like the 6138 movements. They are, like the other things from the Seiko's period, they're reliable, they're strong, they're well built. The sort of things that they can get kind of fussy with is everything like Seiko chronographs, is that they tended to use a lot of springs and spring pressures to make them work correctly. But I love the fact that they're day-date. But my favorite thing is the fact that they're hand winders. That's great. So they're automatic, and they're also hand winders, which is just, I'm getting to the point more and more that I really only wear watches that have hand winding. I don't really wear too many pure auto watches anymore. So it's nice. It's a nice versatile watch. I wish I could weigh it, because that I think is really the only thing, is this thing, they made these to be burly. It's a sign of their times. But anyway, that's it. The Seiko 6138-0040 Bullhead. Oh, and about these being rare and also normally being beaten up, this one is interesting. This came to me from the United States, from the original owner, as far as I know, but it's not a North American model. This is, in fact, if we look at the day wheel language, whoops, it's Roman English. So that makes it like Australia, Southeast Asia, that area. But again, the watch is nearly new. I don't know how it ended up here, but somebody brought it home, because this variant would not have been sold here. Somebody brought it home, and then they didn't wear it a whole lot for some reason. Pretty amazing. And after I restore this one, functional restoration, it'll look very nice. I just, and actually the thing that made me made me utterly certain that the watch was completely original was all this dirt and gruck around these buttons. Nobody had touched it. I could see the clean brushing and the sharp case lines, and then that it was dirty here, and I'm like, okay, no one's touched it. Very cool. Anyway, so there it is. A rare beast. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully that was informative.